Well, I did say no promises on the Bismarck video. I mean, I was heading in that direction. I do kind of want to tackle some figures that are more famous, like Bismarck levels of fame, not Einstein or Winston Churchill levels of fame. But hey, it's a big step up from talking about Joe, the guy who almost became governor of Arkansas that one time. But then, there I was, late one stormy night, animating lip flaps all alone, when a song came on that reminded me of someone. A man of honor. Courage, a man who gave his life in service of a dream. Yeah, I got really into that concept album about the Roman general Belisarius again, but I stand by my choices. After the end of the Western Roman Empire, the story in the East is more or less 1,000 years of, well, they tried their best, but the climate screwed them, people kept dying of plague, every single one of their neighbors made a national pastime of sacking the empire, and they couldn't go more than 5 years without a civil war, so A for effort. And then here you've got Belisarius, who gets hit with practically all of that at once and comes out the other end with an extra quarter of the Mediterranean.
Thank you, Belisarius. Thank you for saving us all in Empire.
Belisarius, look out!
My body. What happened?
Oh no. We've been isekai'd.
We've been what?
This is just like my favorite light novel. That time I was unexpectedly hit by a truck at the same time as Roman military general Flavius Belisarius and simultaneously reincarnated into another world with Roman military general Flavius Belisarius.
Do you mean to tell me we're inside of a novel?
Worse! A mobile game.
Ha 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 ha! Welcome, Belisarius. We've been expecting you.
Caesar?
Indeed, it is I, Caesar! Haven't you ever wondered? Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great, who would win in a fight? This is the place where over 60 of history's greatest leaders and warriors got hit by a truck and became immortals. Welcome, Belisarius, to Infinity Kingdom. Now, guided by the hands of players, we wage war to conquer this continent, using different troops, clever positioning, the 7 magical elements, and dragons.
Are you getting all of this?
So you're saying this is an MMO strategy game set in a massive world that's simple and easy to start, but where every tactic has its own synergies, strengths, and weaknesses, requiring clever thinking and constantly adapting strategies to succeed, and also dragons.
And also dragons!
So how do we get started?
That's the easiest part. Just follow the link in the description. You got it? Okay. Alright, good. All right, now die! Go, holy dragon! Blah, 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 blah. Ah, Belisarius, how nice it is to...
Were you seeking me?
Pardon?
You began, Belisarius, as though you were looking for me.
Well, I just wanted to establish the...
It just seems strange to me, given we've been together on this ship to Africa for weeks.
I was about to say how nice it is to be leaving Constantinople in this, the year of our Lord 533. The salty air does wonders for the lungs.
How curious you are, Procopius. Only recently I was disgraced, and yet you would follow me across the world, knowing that where I land there will be only war and bloodshed. It is not in the nature of most historians to take to the battlefield.
Yes, well, it had certainly occurred to me to stay at home, but I've been working on this military history book, and I couldn't bear to be like all those other historians, what with their records and accounts. No, I'm going to be my own source. I believe it's better that you're disgraced.
How so?
Either your death compounds the recent failures of His Majesty Justinian and confirms the Romans are in our dying days and the world as we know it is ending, or you win a great victory and your story wraps up in a neat little bow of redemption.
You've been recording me.
Exhaustively.
That would explain your presence in the Persian campaign. Say on. What is my story? How have you told it?
I'm glad you asked.
I was first introduced to the commander Belisarius upon the ascension of the Emperor Justinian, and I made a point to make his acquaintance. He was born in the former province of Germania.
The town of Germania.
What?
It was the town of Germania, within Thrace, modern-day Bulgaria.
The town of Germania, which was nowhere near the region of Germania. He ascended to the emperor's bodyguard and served briefly in the war in Iberia against the Vandals.
It was the Persians.
Iberia is Spain and Portugal. How did the Persians get all the way over there?
Iberia is also the name given to a kingdom in the Caucasus, modern-day Georgia.
Georgia? Like the state?
Georgia is also the name...
Yeah, Georgia the country. Now are you going to continue to interrupt me, or can I keep going with the story?
Say on.
For some time, he was faced with defeat at every corner. But the resourceful Belisarius learned from his enemies at every turn, and used their own tactics against them in a stunning victory at Dara. He sent the Persian commander a letter, imploring him to negotiate peace. Naively, this man believed Belisarius had no hope but victory, and led his men right into a trap. Their cavalry was divided, one part fled, one part slain. Now, when the Persians were again asked to consider the merits of peace, King Kavad had to listen. But alas, it was Belisarius who snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. On this day meant for the Lord, the commander did obey his soldiers, and pursued the Persians to Kalinicum to the point of exhaustion. But in divine retribution, the blood spilled that day would be their own. Belisarius was recalled to Constantinople and stripped of his rank. But as fate would have it, Belisarius was just where he needed to be, for he would win the emperor's favor more greatly in Constantinople than in any battle against Persia. For it was in those days that the anger of the commons, anger at corruption, anger at reform, anger at taxes, at unemployment, did all come to a head. The people called for a new emperor to lead them, and chose a man named Hypatius.
Your Majesty, I came right here as soon as I heard the news. I have nothing to do with this. I renounce it all.
No, out! Out!
Don't send us to the mob!
If any of you are scheming something, I don't want you in my palace. Go home!
Where do you think you're going?
There's 50,000 people next door who want to kill us. I know when I'm not wanted.
Oh, you're about to be unwanted.
What, is this about us?
Honey, I've lived as a peasant in the Dark Ages before, and let me tell you what, I'm gonna take my chances with the mob before I go back.
Send in Belisarius.
Belisarius made his way to the arena, where he and his men killed 30 to 60,000 enemies. It sure was lucky the entire crowd was unarmed.
Hypatius?
They broke down my door and dragged me back here. Please, I just wanted to stay in the palace and wait for this to blow over.
The traitor Hypatius was executed by order of the Empress. Although the shame of Kalinicum still hung heavy over Belisarius, in the view of the Emperor his name was cleared. And now the question was, where might he serve next?
The king in Africa has been imprisoned by usurpers.
Which one? Africa's a big place.
The province named Africa, not the continent. German guy in his 60s.
Aw, he always sent the nicest Christmas cards.
Well, I'm going to make this right.
Please tell me you aren't going to war over this.
Look at me. Last January, the people in this city hated us so much they tried to kill us.
Yeah, and we killed like 50,000 of them.
Yeah, that's the problem. We need a win. We put the king back in charge, we take one city for ourselves. Anytime we need PR, we just take over a little bit more.
Sweetheart, no one's going to go. It's a doomed mission, and they're going to be the one to take the fall when something goes wrong. All you're doing is making enemies with the Senate.
Belisarius will do it.
Okay, and where's the money gonna come from? And what if he does win? How are you going to hold on to land in Africa when there's Germans in Italy and Libya who'll take it back? Absolute best case scenario, Belisarius takes over Tripoli, and then in 2 years he rebels and makes it his own kingdom.
Does that all sound about right?
Kalinicum, though the Emperor's mercy is upon me, in my heart I feel it is undeserved. Perhaps soon I may atone.
I'll take that as a yes. Hey, we caught these 2 mercenaries getting drunk. One of them killed their friend.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
He killed him! He killed him dead!
Well, he did kill his friend.
Hey, we're doing you a favor by being here. You know, back in Pannonia, if a Hun kills another Hun, that means he must have been right. You can't just murder him!
You are all experienced soldiers. Have you never defeated an enemy greater than you? That is because God alone shall make the victor of our battles. And so if we seek victory in Africa, we must be righteous. Be like Christ, my brothers.
What, and kill people?
If I must lay down my salvation for this crew, I shall do so. And if we all must lay down our salvation for that of all Africa, let us do so.
So if we're going to hell anyway...
I just want you all to be well behaved. No more alcohol.
He wants us to be Mormons is what he wants.
And so, in the year of our Lord 533, we did make land in Africa. Somehow, the Vandals had no idea we would be coming, and yet Belisarius decreed discretion is the better part of valor. And so we landed over 100 miles south and made our way to Carthage by land. It was a grueling journey, though none seemed more ravaged by the heat than Belisarius's wife, Antonina, who had elected to take the journey alongside her husband. Although she always did seem most out of breath after being left alone with her adopted son. Progress was slow. Indeed, it was impossible to gauge how close we were to that ancient city, walking the same dunes over and over again due to budgetary restrictions. And yet, Belisarius was determined to achieve the impossible. Communication with Constantinople was slow, and he had taken it upon himself to bring all of Africa back into the fold of the empire. So it was that he made a point of teaching his men the proper way of approaching the locals.
This fruit you eat, it is of these lands. From where did you get it?
Oh, we took it from the village we passed through the other day. Do you want some?
Take not what is not given to you freely. We come not as conquerors, but as liberators. Though estranged, these are your neighbors, your countrymen.
It was his peculiar habit to shoot first and teach lessons second. It was the same when we finally reached Carthage.
Wow! It was so smart of Belisarius to anticipate the Vandals' ambush outside the city. Now we can plunder to our heart's content.
My mother always taught me to leave a place nicer than I found it. I want you to apologize to the people who own this home and help repair the city walls. Who goes there? Antonina. Theodosius, my son.
It's over. We gotta tell him.
Shh! We were just, we wanted to pick up some treasure and ask if we could take it home with us and then give it to you as a gift.
I see. God's wishes upon you.
Oh my God, he did it. He did it! He took back everything! Roman Africa is Roman again! Yeah, baby!
Okay, Cupcake, I know you're excited, but what happens every time a Roman general is unexpectedly successful?
Come on, have you met Belisarius? The man has morals. Strange morals at times, but strict morals.
Look, I'm sure you think you know him, but 9 times out of 10.
Okay, here's what we do. I'm giving him a choice. He gets to be governor of Africa, or he gets a triumph. If he wants to revolt, he'll take the governorship. If he's loyal to the emperor, he'll pick the triumph.
Boo, even if he didn't want to revolt, who would take the parade over? Oh my God, he took the parade.
Told you Belisarius wouldn't do me like that.
Okay, so what's your brilliant plan to stop the Goths in Italy from taking over?
One word for you, babe. Belisarius.
I see the harrowing march across Africa hasn't hampered your spirits, Procopius.
When I met you, I was certain the world was ending. But setting foot on Italian soil, just thinking that Rome will be in the hands of the Romans again, it's like you've moved heaven and earth.
And you, Antonina, Again, you have traveled to the end of the sea to stay with me.
Of course! Oh, it would kill me to be separated from you!
Surely your loyalty cannot be questioned.
The march through southern Italy was simple. The Italians had no love for their king and presented little resistance. But the fort at Naples proved to be a challenge. We could not march past it without exposing our rear. We could not break its walls, nor cut off its fresh water. But then one of the soldiers found an unsecured entrance through an aqueduct, and our entire army walked inside without any fuss. Well, that was a freebie. To think such a powerful city could fall because of one unguarded entrance. Pathetic, frankly. Imagine if we ever let something like this happen in Constantinople. The Goths' resistance was no match for our armies. Capturing Rome was only a matter of course. But alas, the Eternal City was only a husk of its former self. From a tactical and economic standpoint, it was hardly worth mentioning. But when we arrived, Belisarius spoke to me.
This place, holding all the stories of my youth. There is the theater of Pompey, where Caesar was stabbed. There, the arch under which Constantine triumphed. Now both are in disrepair. How bittersweet! The indelible proof that they were here is the same that marks their passing. It is as if we have climbed to the top of Olympus and found the gods had left nothing behind but the broken spokes of Apollo's chariot. What frightens you in our hour of victory?
Sorry, it's just that usually your sermons end with someone being executed.
Ha ha! Nonsense! That is usually how they begin!
Belisarius' greatest foe in Italy turned out not to be the Goths at all, but politics.
One of our commanders has gone too deep into Gothic territory. It is regrettable, but our course of action must not be to follow, but to continue methodically.
Actually, my orders are to obey you as is in the interest of the Empire.
Yes, and?
I don't think your plan is in the best interest of the Empire.
I think it is.
I think it's not. Yeah.
Despite the best efforts of General Narses, Belisarius cornered the Goths in their capital of Ravenna. Desperately, they began to turn to any ally they could find. They approached the Franks. They wrote to the Persians. They wrote to Justinian and convinced him to split Italy, but Belisarius refused to engage in negotiations. When all else failed, they turned to Belisarius. They promised him the title of Emperor in the West. Belisarius accepted and was welcomed into the city as a king, and that's when he taught the city of Ravenna a lesson. And so it was that Belisarius did manage within the decade what our forefathers had done in 5 centuries. Yet try as he might to turn back the earth to brighter days, a creeping darkness loomed ahead. A plague swept over the empire. 10,000 died each day inside the walls of Constantinople, and the smell of death was so powerful, it was carried on the winds to Italy, where the Goths practiced upon our darkest hour to wage war for another 14 years. Likewise was it blown to the east, where the Persian king Khosrow had his own lost glory to recapture. He learned a thing or two from Belisarius, and invaded where our citizens were most ungrateful. Again, the men of the army were impatient, and it fell on Belisarius to pull them out of the grave they dug for themselves. Though to be frank, let the record show that Belisarius could totally have taken the Persians' capital, and instead he decided to fake having a super big army again. He won, but they did sack Callinicum again, which must have stung. But worst of all, Belisarius' eyes were finally opened to the trickery of his wife.
My love, wherefore have you brought all this lube?
I'm playing Twister with our son, who isn't related to us by blood. He's very competitive.
I saw them having sex in the courtyard.
When?
About 3 o'clock, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
But Antonina worked her wiles and tricked Belisarius into condemning the poor servant girl and cutting off her tongue and chopping up her body into pieces and putting the pieces into a bag and throwing the bag out to sea.
What?
Because Belisarius was a stupid cuck who is supposed to be smarter than our enemies, but was duped by a woman.
What has possessed you to write like this?
Oh, sorry about that. I appear to have gotten my scrolls mixed up. This is my backup version of history, in case there's ever a sudden regime change. You did know about her, right?
You did mention it in your narration earlier.
Oh, yes. My apologies. Belisarius was permitted to retire, and only had to unretire once to manage the Bulgars. But what was his thanks? A judge by the name of Procopius, who may or may not have been myself, ordered he be imprisoned for an alleged conspiracy against the emperor. So he spent the last of his days.
What the hell are you doing in here? Get out of here, man! Come on! Let's go watch the chariot races!
Ahem. He and the emperor remained closest friends for the remainder of their lives. They would die within months of each other. With time, the might of Africa and Italy would fade, and the Roman Empire's days would continue to darken. But for one brief lifetime was the world moved, however slightly, closer to paradise. Except in the case of the tens of thousands of people he killed.